graduated from the University of Hull, UK, majoring in law. She also graduated from the Indian Board of Alternative Medicine and the Doctor of Alternative Medicine. She carried out her PhD research on the effectiveness of the vibronics treatment in alternative medicine, and she earned her PhD in alternative medicine from the Indian Board of Alternative Medicine in 2013. Aside from that, she's also founder of Sanja Marga TV. She produced a full-length movie based on the true story of battered wife, and she's also produced stage drama. So we have a very accomplished speaker, and we're happy to have with us this afternoon Dr. Genevieve Tan Shu Tung. Let's all welcome Dr. Tung.
Hello, good afternoon. Today I'll be presenting a talk. Today I'll be presenting a talk about meditation. I think all of you would know what meditation is, but I would like to give you a clearer view of what meditation really is and what you can achieve by practicing meditation. Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So what is meditation? Is meditation just sitting cross-legged on the floor? Is meditation just sitting cross-legged on the floor? And closing your eyes? Is that what meditation is? No. Alright? Meditation is the practice of stilling the mind. Okay? In the past, it is usually associated with finding the higher self. Okay? It's associated with a spiritual journey. But in today's world, meditation is an exercise to relax, maintain health, and also help you to achieve goals. Regardless of whatever the goal is, why you practice meditation, meditators will still reap the benefits of practicing it. Okay? Can I have the next one, please? What is the reason for diseases? What is disease in the first place? When you separate the word, disease becomes dis-ease. It means that your body is not at ease. And the reason for this is stress. There is nothing that causes you any disease or cause your body to behave in a particular erratic manner other than stress. Okay? Richard Brown, who is the MD or Associate Professor of Clinical Psychiatry of Columbia University, he said that they now believe that 80% of illnesses is stress-related. That whatever your genetic weak link, stress will trigger it. So now we want to learn how to combat stress. And there is no better way than meditation. I think this is not really important. Okay. These are some of the few health reasons how meditation can benefit you. Can everyone read that, or is it too small? It's too small, alright, okay. Alright, the first one would be relaxation. I've already mentioned that. And when you're relaxed, it actually boosts immunity in recovering cancer patients. That's what the Ohio State University actually discovered. The second one is emotional balance. When you practice meditation, you will be more clear-headed when you deal with problems. You tend to have clarity of thoughts. And when you see things with a broader perspective. You don't only think about your problem, but you can actually see it from outside the box. Okay? Increased fertility. Now this is a very interesting one. The University of Western Australia actually discovered that women are more likely to conceive when they are relaxed. When you're stressed out with our hectic lifestyle these days, you know, we rush here, rush there. You see in the Philippines, you have traffic jam here, traffic jam there. So you tend to get stressed out. And this is probably the reason why women today are more likely to suffer from infertility problems. All right? The next point would be to the relief of the irritable bowel syndrome. The State University of New York actually prescribes meditation as an effective way to treat IBS. So when you meditate regularly, you can actually expect to see constipation being relieved, bloating and acidity. All these things will go away if you meditate regularly. When you're relaxed, of course, your stress will also be reduced. And when, apparently according to Emory University in the US, when your stress is reduced because you're feeling very relaxed, it actually lowers the effects of inflammation. For example, arthritis, heart disease, a lot of them are resulted from inflammation. And this inflammation is actually caused by stress. It also helps lower blood pressure. It also reduces the risk of cancer and tumor, and it also has an anti-aging property. So women who want to look young, even though they are a bit on the old side, when you meditate regularly, okay, your cells tend to look fairer, clearer, and of course you have less wrinkles. This is true, okay? You can go and do your own research and find out about it. Meditators have higher levels of telomerase activity, that's what they say. They are protective caps at the end of the chromosomes. And this is actually the new frontier in anti-aging science. This is said by University of California. When you meditate more, you also improve your memory, and it also helps to relieve pain. I want to introduce you to Dr. Herbert Benson's discovery. He, from the Harvard Medical School, actually discovered that a person's state of mind affects the body on a physical and genetic level. See here. Those who meditate long-term, he found that there are more disease-fighting genes. They're more active there, compared to those who do not meditate at all. And genes that protect from disorders such as pain, infertility, high blood pressure, and even rheumatoid arthritis were switched on. Now he did an experiment, okay? Just now I said, when you meditate regularly, those particular cells that actually helps benefit your health are switched on. As easily as it can switch on when you are meditating, it can also easily switch off when you do not meditate. So he did an experiment to show that, he got a group of people who do not meditate at all to start meditating daily. And Jake Tobey said that after 2 months, these people's bodies began to change. The genes that help fight inflammation, kill disease cells, and protect the body from cancer all began to switch on. So the key point from Dr. Benson's research is that the benefits of meditation actually increase with regular practice. And the more one practices meditation, the greater the chances for one to remain free from arthritis, because reduced stress leads to lesser or lower risk of inflammation. Okay, arthritis is all a result of inflammation, joint pain, and you will have a stronger immunity, and you will have healthier hormone levels and lower blood pressure. Meditation has also been studied to relate to cancer and tumors. Ohio State University found that progressive muscle relaxation, which is resulted from meditation, actually reduces the risk of breast cancer. Now this is interesting, so no one would actually think that meditation can help prevent cancer. But what's the reason for that again? What's the major factor for disease? Stress. And so when you meditate, stress is gone, isn't it? So cancer is also erased. So in another study of Ohio State, a month of relaxation exercise also boosted natural killer cells in the elderly, giving them a greater resistance to tumors and viruses. So now, Is it important to meditate with this self-discovery? It's not only one. I'm only giving one example, but there are plenty of other examples, similar examples, that show that meditation can help you. Even including in cases of HIV. You see, you know what lymphocytes are? I mean, I think medical doctors will know what lymphocytes are. Yeah. So, in a 2008 study on HIV-positive patients, after an 8-week meditation course, patients who had meditated showed no decline of lymphocyte content. Lymphocyte is the white blood cells that will help you to fight the infection in your body. And HIV patients, it is so important for HIV patients because if the white blood cells or the lymphocytes content actually decreases, then they are more likely to die from an infection, right? But people who have meditated showed no decline in lymphocyte content, whereas those who did not meditate actually showed a significant reduction in lymphocytes. How is that? How is that so? Huh? Yeah. In fact, the study also found that the lymphocyte content, not only the lymphocyte content did not go down in meditators, it actually went up. So their resistance to infection actually increased with regular meditation. So other reasons to meditate, it's not only because of health reasons. When you still the mind, you actually also tap the field of the consciousness, the field of infinite possibilities. That's why people nowadays, they recommend personal development coaches, motivational coaches, they tell you to meditate in order to tap into the field of the subconscious. It helps you to set goals, goal setting. It helps you to develop self-confidence because you will have clarity of thought. And you become more composed when dealing with problems. So, I want to show you one case study. Curing an incurable disease. Okay, a lot of allopathic doctors will always say this is incurable, that is incurable. Oh, I'm so sorry. You've got to amputate your leg. I'm so sorry. You know, you're going to die. Okay, there's no hope for you anymore. Now, I want to quote this case study of Tibetan Lama Pakyat Rinpoche. He was diagnosed with diabetes and Pott's disease when he was 37 years old in the year 2000 something. I'm sorry, I forgot to put that in. Okay, his right foot had gangrene, and 3 doctors actually suggested amputation. The Dalai Lama, he went to the Dalai Lama and asked for a solution because he didn't want to amputate his leg, his foot. And the Dalai Lama said, why not you try to heal it with meditation? You're already in a serious, critical condition. And yet now, what? Dalai Lama is asking me to meditate? The 3 doctors are asking me to amputate my foot now, you know? But he did it. He went back and he did it. So these are the stages of healing. Initially, there was black putrid ooze coming out from that affected foot. And soon it became cloudy. The oozes became cloudy and there were bruises. And after that he just merely had swelling and malodor. Now after continuously meditating for 9 months, the ooze became clear colored. He had reduced swelling and he was able to put weight on the leg. Meditating for another 1 month, he was able to walk with crutches, and then later on he was able to walk with only 1 crutch, and finally he walked without crutches at all, merely by meditation alone, without anything else. The progression of gangrene was not only halted, but it was cured, and meditation also cured his diabetes and tuberculosis. So I would say anything that people tell you that is incurable is actually curable, but from within. That's what meditation is. It is to cure from within, not from without. During this experiment, or during his experience with regular meditation, he did not take any medicine. He was not on any special diet, and only daily meditation. The research on Rinpoche by a scientist actually revealed that when he meditated, it actually induced mild to moderate hypothermia, which would have resulted in killing the bacteria and healing of the body. That was how they came up with a theory why meditation actually worked for him. And meditation can also, you can also focus on certain sites. When you meditate, you want to do certain healings, which I will explain later. And also in the workshop that I'm going to be conducting on the 11th. You can actually focus on particular sites of the body with certain visualization, imagination, in order to unblock the flow of prana, unblock the blockage of prana. Okay. I want to show you also the visible effects of meditation. This was a challenge, a 30 days meditation retreat. Now you just look the before and after, at the beginning of the meditation retreat and the after effect of the 30 days meditation. This is before, and look, this is after. Okay, next one. Before and after. Just observe properly and see what's the difference. Next one. Before and after. Next one. Before and after. So what do you see? Anyone wants to volunteer? Yeah, of course they're smiling, or they can post us that they're smiling. Yeah. Lesser stress, and you can see that their face is actually glowing. Their faces are glowing, okay? Yeah. So it is actually very visible. So imagine in 30 days of meditation can actually make your skin glow this way. What about regular meditation for about a year or a few years? Okay? This is the summary of what you gain from meditation. You can expect to see improved emotional stability, as I said, clarity of thought, for you to deal with your problems or whatsoever questions that you have, posed by people. You will have a developed intuition, a sharpened mind, increased self-confidence, expanded consciousness, heightened sense of creativity, sharpened ESP. You will also become more energetic as you meditate regularly because you are drawing in cosmic energy. In fact, human beings do not need sleep. The only reason why you sleep is because you want to draw in cosmic energy. And when you are drawing in cosmic energy so many times more when you meditate, you don't really need sleep. I will explain that again during the workshop on the 11th. You have also improved quality of living because you will learn how to set goals properly, and you will have an increased self-confidence. So you will be very sure of yourself and also all the decisions that you make. So obviously your quality of living will improve, and you will look younger with clearer skin, and your blood pressure will also be normalized. Now this is very important. Misnomers about meditation. There are plenty of misnomers about meditation. First, meditation is linked to religion. Many people think that. Is meditation linked to religion? No. It just so happens that because it is so powerful that certain religions actually ask their followers to practice meditation. But it is not linked to religion. There are many people who are atheists, who claim themselves to be atheists, but they are meditating. Right? Then when you are sitting down, staring at the newspaper, are you not meditating on the news in the newspaper? You are. So does it have anything to do with religion? No. Okay? When you listen to a song, the beautiful classical music on the stage, you are actually meditating on the song. Whatever that you pay attention to, 100%, you think, you're so engrossed in it. Now that is meditation. Whether you're meditating on the right thing or on the wrong thing, that is the big question. Okay? The next misnomer is that meditation is practiced only by the spiritually inclined. Not necessarily. I know many people who are very successful in their business life, big top CEOs, meditating regularly. They have nothing to do with spirituality at all. They just want the money. But they still meditate. Okay? Meditation is dangerous. It's not dangerous. It's just like saying cooking is dangerous. If you know how to cook, is cooking dangerous? No. Same thing with meditation. If you know how to meditate properly, then it is not dangerous. It's all a matter of experience. And if you force it, then it becomes dangerous. If you don't force it, then it doesn't. Only certain practices such as pranayama, like forcefully controlling your breath. Now that can be very dangerous because you are fighting against nature. But meditation is just simply being yourself. You're just observing the breath. You're just letting yourself be. Now you're listening to me talk now. Are you all breathing? You all are breathing. Is it dangerous to breathe? No. Okay, so it's about knowing what meditation really is, which I will explain later. Fourth misnomer, meditation can lead to hysteria. This is a very traditional Chinese concept that when you meditate for long and if you're not ready, you can go mad because you're playing with the mind. But that's not true. You're breathing anyways now, and you sleep at night and you don't even know whether you're breathing or not. Do you suddenly wake up and become mad? No. Okay? So meditation does not lead to hysteria. It could have been other factors, but because the news today, the media today, as we all know, something very small, they will take it and turn it and becomes something totally blown out of proportion. Alright? Something that is not real. Something that is A will become Z tomorrow. So maybe this person would have suffered from some mental problems or some relationship problems, and just because he or she practiced meditation, suddenly they became hysterical, and they blame it on meditation, but it need not be because of meditation. Obviously, they won't tell you what the problem is. After all, they are already mad. They will not be able to tell you, yeah, I became mad because my boyfriend left me or my girlfriend left me. Now, meditation cannot be practiced by children. This is another big misnomer. It is also not true. I have taught meditation to 2-year-olds in India, and they can sit very quietly. They may not be able to grasp or truly appreciate what meditation is, but they can sit quietly. Now, that comes with discipline. You can make them sit there quietly, and because meditation is about stilling the mind, even though they cannot truly appreciate the state of meditation, training them to sit quietly is also good for them, isn't it? Children can be very hyperactive, and when they sit down quietly, their brain activity actually lowers down for the time being, and it will give you peace as well. Not only peace to them, peace to the teacher, peace to yourself as well as parents. Meditation requires a person to sit cross-legged. No, not necessarily. You can actually sit down on a chair. You can even lie down in the bed and do meditation. As long, I would say, it would be best if your spine is straight when you do meditation. So you need not necessarily be sitting cross-legged. Meditation requires a person to detach from his or her familiar bonds and hide away from society. Okay. I'm sure many of you will know if someone comes up to you and tell you, I'm going to meditate. Oh my God. He's going to take the path. He's going to run away to the forest. He's going to strut around naked, sitting on a rock. That's meditation. That's your idea of meditation. That's not true. Okay. You do not need to detach from your familiar responsibility. You do not need to leave whatever comfort that you have now. You do not need to give away your big bungalow houses. You do not need to leave your top positioned jobs in order to meditate. Whatever you are, whoever you are, wherever you may come from, you can still do meditation and still remain in the world today. Meditation is merely for relaxation. It is actually more powerful than you think. It's not only for mere relaxation. Relaxation is only a resulting factor of it. Let's have a look at some famous regular meditators. These are the names of some regular meditators. I'm sure you all will know who Richard Gere is, Demi Moore, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Katy Perry, Kourtney Kardashian, and Oprah Winfrey. Now let's look at the next set of famous regular meditators. Top-level CEOs who meditate regularly. I do not find it a surprise that they are so successful today because they do practice meditation. And as I said earlier, meditation can help tap into your creativity, help you to develop a heightened sense of self-confidence, and also help you to have a clear head in order to set important goals for your lives. See, look at Steve Jobs, former CEO of Apple Inc., Larry Brilliant, former Google Org director. We've got Russell Simmons, the co-founder of Def Jam Records, Bob Shapiro, former CEO of Monsanto, and many, many more top men in this world today actually meditate. Alright? According to Ray Dalio, the billionaire founder of the Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund firm, he said that meditation, more than anything else in his life, was the biggest ingredient of whatever success he has had. Time to think about it. Want to be like him? Maybe it's time to take up meditation. Yeah? Companies these days are also encouraging meditation among their staff, among their employees. Companies that offer meditation as one of the employee benefits. You hear of employee benefits such as maternity leave or daycare. But have you ever heard of meditation as being one of the employee benefits? It's new, isn't it? But the trend is catching on. Look at these companies who are practicing it. Apple, Yahoo, Google, AOL, etc., many more. All right? They actually allocate certain timing of the week to get all of their staff to meditate together. Does that improve teamwork? Yes. It helps you bond as well, in silence, of course, not over coffee. Now, why companies encourage meditation? Because the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health finds that stress-related ailments cost companies about $200 billion a year in increased absenteeism, tardiness, and the loss of talented workers. 70 to 90%, they also found that of employee hospital visits are also linked to stress. Now, job tension directly tied to lack of productivity and, of course, loss of competitive edge. This is the reason why companies these days recognize the importance of practicing meditation. So the goal of meditation is to become one with the breath. It is just to simply be. It is not to control your breath in a certain way. Okay, that, as I said, I've mentioned earlier, the practice of pranayama is the art of controlling the breath in a certain way to awake the kundalini. But true meditation doesn't really require pranayama. Maybe meditation will be one smaller part of pranayama, but true meditation is only about being one with the breath, and I'll be teaching you this technique later on. Okay, what is the nature of the mind? Before you want to know how you can benefit from meditation, and before you want to embark on your meditative journey, you must know what the nature of the mind is. Nature of the mind is just like a mad monkey. In 5 minutes, can you tell me how many thoughts have crossed your mind? How many? You're sitting down here listening to Dr. Is my hair okay? Is my shirt okay? Oh my God. You know, I have an appointment at 5 o'clock. I need to rush home. Why is she talking so long? So you see, you have thousands of thoughts crossing your mind every single minute. That's when the mind is like a mad monkey. When it is unrestrained, when it is not controlled, then you become the slave. The mind becomes your master. Okay? So how do we tame this mad monkey? I know it looks very nice here, this nice cartoon. Okay? How do we tame the mad monkey? Can we beat it? Can we beat this monkey? Now tell me where is the mind? Where is the mind? Anyone? Can we lock it up in a room? Deny it food? Can we tie it up? No. So you do not know where the mind is. So how can you tame something that you cannot see? So you need to know what the mind is first. And that again I will explain on the 11th. But for now, just simply, we need to tame the mind, this mad monkey, by making it go up and down the pole. You see, when you do not mind your mind, then it flies everywhere. But when you actually restrain it to do certain activities by commanding it to do this and that and this and that, then it has nowhere else to run. Look at our nose. When you breathe, when I ask you not to think about anything else, but just to focus on your breath, just try. Close your eyes. Just close your eyes and breathe. Focus on your breath. As you breathe in, hear the word so. As you breathe out, hear the word hum. So just focus on the breath. In, out. In, out. Okay. You do not get to think about anything else. Your mind is fully focused on climbing that pole. So you make your monkey climb up the pole and climb down the pole. And eventually, these are the experiences, the probable experiences that you will experience during meditation. Your breath tends to become shorter and lighter. If you're an experienced meditator, you will realize that now, when you start breathing, when you start focusing your breath, it will be long. Okay? As you meditate, after 5 to 10 minutes, it will become shorter and shorter and shorter. And finally, you achieve a state called the no-breath state. And that's what we call samadhi. When there is no breath, there is no mind. When there is no mind, you are in a state of being. You may also feel tingling sensation on the skin. Some people who meditate, they feel as though something is crawling on their skin. Warm feeling at the bottom of the spine, that's where the kundalini is awakened. Crawling sensation up the spine, because the kundalini is climbing up. Warm and cold on the head. Floating sensation. Sometimes you do feel as though you're floating when you meditate. Some people I see, they actually rock back and forth while they're meditating without realizing it. Because they feel so light, so they start rocking, but they didn't realize it. But other people whose eyes are open, they can actually see you rocking back and forth. Astral projection. Astral projection is when your soul actually leaves the body and you can see what the fourth dimensional plane. And the recalling of past memories that never took place in this life, and many, many more. There are many, many other experiences that we haven't listed here. So there is nothing to lose but all to gain when you meditate. Now let me get into the alpha state. When you meditate, you actually are tapping into the alpha level. So what is the alpha level? Alpha level is when your brain waves slow to half the normal frequency, 8 to 13 cycles per second. Okay? What is the benefit of tapping into the alpha state? We are all connected at the alpha state. That's the subconscious mind. Jose Silva, who is the founder of the Silva system, actually experimented with meditation and was shocked when one day his daughter could actually tell him what he was thinking. There is only one subconscious mind. I have a conscious mind, you have a conscious mind, but we all have the same subconscious mind. Is your heart beating in a different way that my heart is beating? No. Isn't it? Are you breathing with 3 lungs? No. They are the same processes, so we share the same subconscious mind. These are some of the scientific discoveries on remaining in the alpha state. Improvement of mental processes, increased creativity, calms the body, keeps the mind alert. All these things, which is just a repetition of whatever we've said about the benefits of meditation. Now here, this is the fMRI scans showing how the beta waves. Here. Beta is what we are always in, the beta level. Okay, the beta state. When you practice meditation, this beta state is reduced to alpha. So the light no longer exists with the colors. Did you also know that sustained meditation actually leads to neuroplasticity? People think that once the brain, some people say that, oh, when your lung is damaged, you cannot grow new lungs, right? Some people think that when you're stuck in a particular problem, you cannot get out of it. But when you meditate regularly, you actually induce neuroplasticity. The brain has the ability to change. Now I would like to introduce to you something called the Sandhya Marga meditation, which is actually our technique of meditation that I teach around the world. These are our chakras. We have 7 chakras altogether. When we meditate, we are actually activating all the chakras. So we meditate, we focus on the base chakra, we awaken the kundalini and let the serpent climb up to activate all the chakras. This is only a visual representation of how awakening the Kundalini is. See, it climbs up your spine. That is why some people feel the tingling sensation around your spine when you meditate. Okay, next one. Copper pyramid meditation. We use copper pyramid. We already know that, I don't know whether you all know, but it is a wide-known fact that pyramids have special powers. That's why the Egyptians used to use the pyramids not as a tomb. It was later discovered that those pyramids were actually temples of worship. Okay? And our Stanya Marga meditation system actually uses copper pyramids on the head. We do not just use any. I know there are many meditation systems that use pyramids, plastic pyramids made from corrugated board, etc. But we actually use a proper copper pyramid because copper in vibrational medicine has a very strong memory power. It retains the information. So when you're drawing in cosmic energy through your head, when it is copper, it actually retains that energy there for a longer period of time. Let's look at how, now research shows that meditation done inside a pyramid is 3 times more powerful. I would say that is any pyramid. Imagine using a copper pyramid, which retains that information. So it will be many, many more times more powerful. Copper is an excellent conductor and is known for its memory retention property and vibrationally. That is why when I actually prescribe my patients with vibronic remedies, I actually use copper for the wells. It's called radionic therapy. These are some of the power of the pyramids. You can see that when you keep food under the pyramid, a large pyramid, it actually remains fresher for a longer period of time. And any animals that are suffering from anxiety when placed under a pyramid actually calms down as well. And it will also extend the lifespan of blades, and this is true. Huh? When you know the razor blades that the gentlemen use for shaving, when you put it under a pyramid, you don't have to throw it away that fast. You can actually use it for a longer period of time. So it has an extended lifespan. The benefits of pyramid meditation, it helps to heal wounds, it reduces inflammation and pain, it helps to optimize health as well. I mean, we've got people meditating, people suffering from asthma who meditate using the copper pyramid, their asthma was actually gone. We have many, many cases like that. And also people suffering from blood pressure, high blood pressure, when they meditate under the copper pyramid, their high blood pressure was also normalized. It also helps you improve memory and concentration. You will start having vivid dreams in the night. Maybe all this while you've been dreaming, but you did not actually remember your dreams. But after meditating using a copper pyramid, you start to remember your dreams. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but for me it's a good thing. Okay? And you will also become more alert and energetic because you've drawn so much cosmic energy. The only thing that is sustaining your body is called cosmic energy. So when you are sleeping, you are actually drawing in cosmic energy. Why? Because the body is inactive. So you're sleeping there, you're drawing in cosmic energy. But when you meditate, you're actually consciously resting the body. You draw in much more, way, way much more cosmic energy than just sleeping. Because you are conscious about it. These are some of the experiences by copper pyramid meditators. They have a sense of weightlessness very fast. They get into the alpha state very, very fast. They also have electric-like tingling sensations, whether it's on the head or whether it's at the back of the spine, sometimes on your hands. Feelings of warmth, usually in the upper portions of the body. Some people I know who meditated using the Sanya Marga meditation, they started sweating, even though they were in the air-conditioned room. Okay, so all this show that there are some cell activities going on while you are meditating under the copper pyramid. Tranquility, relaxation, and freedom from tension, dreams with vivid colors and graphic visions, external stimuli, sight and sounds particularly fade away. You are no longer here. When you meditate for a longer period of time, you are no longer here. You're totally in a totally different world. Time distortion. Okay, you're not here. Deeper, more fulfilling meditations and higher energy levels. So how do we practice meditation? That's the question. You do not need to sit cross-legged. You can just sit down on the chair comfortably with your spine straight. Even if you lie down, make sure your spine is straight, and then you can start doing meditation. Do not wear tight clothing, wear loose clothing. It's very important. Even when you do yoga, some people nowadays they wear this gym clothing with this sexy outfit and come and do yoga. It's very bad because you know why? Because it doesn't allow your blood to flow. You want to allow the prana, you want to allow the chi, you want to allow the energy to flow through your body effortlessly. So when you're wearing tight clothing, you're feeling confined, you're feeling uncomfortable, your concentration will only be on the body, not on the higher purpose. Then you have to observe the breath. Meditation is so simple. It's just observing the breath. We don't have to chant anything. We don't have to do anything else but just observe the breath. And as I said, and the longer you meditate, the shorter your breath becomes. And you may just reach the no breath state. That's called samadhi. Being one with yourself. Or you can say being one with a higher power or being one with God, whatever you want to call it. Alright? So you can, if you find your mind flying off while you're meditating, this is an experience experienced by many. They say, oh, I can't do this because when I'm meditating halfway, 1,001 things come and invade my mind. It's a very normal thing, nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to be afraid of as well. Just let those thoughts go and focus on your breath again. So when you're focusing your breath halfway and say, oh, my son has not eaten. I'm just letting that go now, and I'm going to go back to so hum, so hum, so hum. Oh my God, my cat is jumping over the wall. Is she okay? No, release that again. So hum. And as time passes by, you will get the hang of it, and slowly your concentration ability will increase. So if you all want to know more about the Sunday meditation technique, there is a website here. We also have a free online magazine for spirituality, health and success. This is the address there. And the address to the Sandhya Marga Holistic Living Academy is here. I actually have an audio guide for meditation. It's about 40 minutes long. You can actually get it from here. I've written a book on mastering the mind. If you want to master your life, of course, you've got to master the mind first. You cannot allow your mind to be your master. You must claim your right as the master. So claim your power today, and you will be able to change your life in many ways. So you must be the master of the mind, not the mind be the master of you. So this is a technique. And using the principles of Sun Tzu's Art of War, I'm sure you've heard of the Art of War, isn't it? How many of you have heard of the Art of War? One? Only one? Two? Three? Four? Okay, maybe there's just a few, okay? It's a very historically ancient scripture written by someone by the name of Sun Tzu. He wrote techniques to battle. Okay, techniques to battle, very important techniques to battle, which a reference that has been used time and time again over the past 2,500 years. Today, it's been interpreted in the context of business administration, how to use Sun Tzu's Art of War in the stock market, many, many ways. So my book basically interprets the Sun Tzu's Art of War principles in our daily life, how we can use our mind, how we can master the mind in order to get a successful life, okay? To experience a successful life. So if you want, the book is sold back there. So, yeah. Alright, I think that's it. If you want to meditate, I have 10 more minutes. Can you just click on that? Is it? Yeah. Yeah, there is a particle dimension. You can actually go up on the website just now to see that. Yeah, the angles are important, but I would say that of all the things that I've actually experimented, of all the copper pyramids I've experimented, although it plays a part, it's not a really big factor. It's not a really big factor. If you don't have a copper, it's okay. If you don't have the copper, it's okay. But as I said, the copper pyramid, meditating under a pyramid allows you to reap the benefits 3 times more than meditation without a pyramid. But copper pyramid, not only you will reap 3 times more, you reap many times more benefits. No, not necessarily. It's not necessary. Do you want to meditate, everyone? If you want to try, just close your eyes. Just follow my instructions. Sit up straight. Take a deep breath in. And breathe out. Take another deep breath in. And breathe out. One last deep breath in. And breathe out. As you breathe in, hear the word so. And as you breathe out, hear the word hum. So hum. It means I am. Just be one with the breath. Imagine a pole stretching from the base of your spine all the way up above your head. Now imagine a golden light called at the base of your spine. I'll be counting from 1 to 108. With every number I count, you are going to coil one step upwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, and 108. Now push your head through the clouds and we'll come to a big hall. Find a place in the middle of the hall. Now imagine the light from your third eye area in between the brow, spreading throughout your forehead. Imagine the light at your heart in the form of a lotus opening up its petals one by one. Allow the white light to spread throughout your body. Take a deep breath in and say, I love you. I love myself. I love all. Now take a deep breath in. Exhale and imagine all negativity flowing out of you. You can open your eyes. That was a very brief meditation session, but if you would like to have a full-length meditation, you can go to that particular link that I provided just now. That's it. Thank you very much. I would also like to present, the book is sold. This is the book, okay? If you want to buy the book is at the back, is sold at the back there. And I would also like to present Dr. Erwin Torres with 2 certificates. He actually came to Malaysia last month to present a workshop at our center. And we would also like to appoint him to be an honorary advisor for our academy. So, Dr. Erwin Torres, please. Okay, certificate of appointment. This is to certify that Dr. Erwin Torres has been appointed to be an honorary advisor for the Sandhya Marga Holistic Living Academy. Thank you.
Dr. Navarro to give the certificate of appreciation to our students.
Thank you, Dr. Austria. The Philippine College for the Advancement of Medicine Foundation Incorporated, or PCAM, awards the certificate of appreciation to Dr. Genevieve Tan Shutun, whose Indian name is Sandhya Marga. Sandhya Marga is like for us Sunday morning. So I remember the song Morning Has Broken. That is very relaxing. Okay. Again to Dr. Genevieve Tan Shutun for being the resource speaker in the 12th annual conference program on the power of natural healing. The title of that paper is Sandhya Marga Meditation, to make the Kundalini you keep to health and life. It's the certificate. And thank you for the presentation and God bless you. Would you please join us, Dr. Austria, for the picture taking Sunday morning. Thank you. Thanks again, Dr. Chelby.
I hope you will all join us for her workshop on Monday. So, see all of you there. Now we're going to move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is also nobody. Not a new speaker. Do we have a break? We don't have a merienda break, I think. It's not in the schedule. Erwin? Science in preparatory medicine and doctorate of medicine at the University of Santo Tomas. He also completed his internship at the Hospital ng Manila and followed on to be a resident in pathology, took up his residency in pathology at the Mercy Hospital and Medical Center at Illinois Masonic Medical Center, both in Chicago, Illinois. And he rotated in anatomical and clinical pathology, where he rotated in anatomical and clinical pathology. He is accepted as a fellow in the hemat pathology at the University of Illinois, Chicago. And together with his father, the late Dr. Manuel D. Navarro, he was a junior author of the article entitled HCG Immunoassay for the Early Detection of Cancer, published in the Acta Manilana, a research journal of the University of Santo Tomas Research Center. He returned to the Philippines in 1996 to continue the work of his late father and the pioneer of the beta HCG immunoassay for cancer. He is an active member of PCAM and a former board member too. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Efren Navarro.
Thank you, John. And it's nice to see old faces. I've been away from sabbatical. Actually, I've been attending a few lectures in the last 2 years, but with the urging of Jimmy, I decided to say yes to his request that I lecture again this subject. Well, this afternoon, what I'll be talking about is, well, something you can say a cancer marker, but we use the urine as a specimen for the detection of this test. Of course, speaking of markers, some of you who may be patients here are familiar with markers like CEA, like carcinoembryonic antigen, the PSA or protein-specific antigen for prostate cancer, AFP or alpha-fetoprotein for being a marker for liver cancer, the CA15-3 or cancer antigen 15-3 being a marker for breast, and there are other markers for other types of cancer, like for lymphomas, they use cluster designation or CD markers to say whether they are B cell or T cell. But this marker that I'll be talking this afternoon is, this will be familiar to many women. And as we go on to the next slide, please. Well, the test involves the beta-HCG immunoassay for cancer. HCG stands for human chorionic gonadotrophic hormone. Many women in the audience are familiar with this as a marker for pregnancy, but this afternoon I'll speak about this hormone as a marker for cancer. Next slide. Well, HCG or human chorionic gonadotropin is a glycoprotein hormone. It has sugar, it has protein, and acid in the end. The sugar component is about 30%, but the rest are mostly protein. In pregnancy, it's the placenta that's the major producer of this hormone, and the kidney is a small contributor. Of course, today we speak of this hormone as a cancer marker, so cancers, therefore, do contribute to HCG production. Next slide. The human chorionic gonadotrophic hormone has two subunits. It's the alpha, made up of 92 amino acid sequences, and the beta subunit made up of 145 amino acid sequences, bonded together by a non-covalent linkage. This is a glycoprotein hormone that is related to the other members of the group, like LH or luteinizing hormone, FSH or follicular stimulating hormone, TSH or thyroid stimulating hormone, and they have an alpha and beta subunit as well. The alpha subunit, however, of all the four hormones are the same, but it's the beta subunit that will differ each hormone from one another. The control of production of the alpha subunit lies in a gene found in location in chromosome 6. But for the control of the beta subunit, there are several genes found in several locations in chromosome 19. Next slide, please. This is a slide showing the amino acid sequences for the alpha subunit, and below that, the several amino acid sequences that make up the beta subunit. Next slide. Now, as I said, this is HCG is a glycoprotein hormone, and when you compare it to the other hormones, well, the four hormones have the same alpha subunit made up of 92 amino acid sequences. But for the beta HCG, the beta subunit is composed of 120 amino acids plus 25 more. Whereas luteinizing hormone, again, has 92 amino acids that make up the alpha subunit, but the beta subunit is comprised of 120 amino acids only. The follicular stimulating hormone, again, has 92 amino acids for its alpha subunit, but only 111 amino acids for its beta subunit. The thyroid stimulating hormone also has 92 amino acid sequences that comprise its alpha subunit, but only 118 amino acids for its beta subunit. So it's the beta subunit that will differentiate each of these four hormones. Next. This is an illustration of just a schematic diagram of how a complete molecule will look like. you have the irregularly coiled white structure here, which is the alpha subunit with its 92 amino acids. And to the left of that is the 145 strong beta subunit. And this is how a complete HCG molecule will look like. In the blood, the molecule is subjected to enzymatic stimulation when it circulates, especially in the area of the liver, where it undergoes fragmentation, or you can call it nicking, or they undergo glycosylation, and this will sort of alter the appearance of the beta HCG. You may have disjointed area here in the beta side of the molecule. Sometimes you may have a separate alpha subunit, or sometimes you may only have this central portion present. I'm showing this because what is important is that the urine has a highest yield of, it's in the urine that will produce a very high yield of the complete molecule. And this is the one that we are interested in. Next slide. As I said earlier, it's a hormone of pregnancy. So in pregnancy, well, the fertilized ovum undergoes cellular division. And just for example, in this 10-day-old blastocyst, you can see certain structures of interest here. The pale cells in the middle are cytotrophoblasts, and lateral to that, or surrounded by the dark paler cluster of cells, are the syncytiotrophoblasts. These are the cells of interest since they secrete HCG. And then you can see these red areas here, which are blood legs, where the HCG goes out, goes into the blood, and then to the urine. Next now. In pregnancy, there's a rapid rise of the hormone, and then a drop. But then it continues to be secreted by the syncytiotrophoblasts, and by the 40th week, when the baby eventually is delivered, the production stops. And this is how HCG goes about in pregnancy. Now, one might question, what is the relationship of this hormone in cancer? Well, the answer lies in a historical development. Well, actually, I'm going to talk about how the HCG assay came about. Next slide, please. Well, in 1927, these two authors were given credit because they developed the first clinical bioassay for pregnancy detection. Urine from women were injected to mice, or to female mice, or to male frogs, or even to rabbits. And these changes in female mice, luteinization and enlargement of the corpus luteum, are observed. When these are present, this is indicative that the woman is pregnant and HCG is present. Now, further on, Zondek in 1931 experimented some more when he injected the urine from women with chorionic choriocarcinoma and HMO, which are specialized cancers of the uterus. And he also obtained urine from men with testicular cancer. And similar observations were found. So one can say, therefore, that there is HCG in cancer. Next slide, please. Now, what followed where this array of numerous articles, this is just a fragment of the many articles written about HCG in the medical literature. My late father, Dr. Navarro, Manuel Navarro, to stress the point, tabulated this, that there is HCG in certain cancers like the uterus, the skin, the lung, the adrenal, esophagus, brain, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. In 1958, Dr. Manuel Navarro spoke of this test in the London Cancer Congress and explained to the audience about this test even before signs or symptoms would appear, and yet you have a positive HCG reading. He also presented this at the Philippine Medical Association Convention here in Baguio City. And what followed was a series of studies that he continued to do, where he experienced a lot of pitfalls due to the occurrence of cross reactions between the hormones that I mentioned earlier, because they were using polyclonal antibody to test HCG. But unfortunately, being polyclonal, you include the other hormones in there and you don't come up with a concrete positive result. So he continued to study and fine-tune the test, and in 1986, with the advent of the monoclonal antibody that has been developed, he was able to demonstrate finally the difference between the various glycoprotein hormones. He also had written in 1986 in the Journal of Nutrition, Growth and Cancer about the sensitivity of the test that he developed and compared them with the more sophisticated HCG assays using radioimmunoassay and the enzyme-linked variation of the test. Next slide. At the University of Santo Tomas, he gathered over 4,000 patients with various forms of cancer. Cancers from the head to the neck, to the arms, the liver, to the kidneys, down to the foot. So this is a wide range population of cancers that have been studied, and indicating that the HCG is present in most of the cancers. Next slide. He found, as he wrote in the Acta Manilana in 1982, he found this test to be 99.5% accurate. Next slide, please. This is the table taken from the Journal of Nutrition, Growth and Cancer, where he compared his test with the beta HCG using the enzyme link and the radioimmunoassay tests. He found them to be just as sensitive or even more sensitive. Next slide. Well, maybe I'll stop here for a few moments to ponder, since we're talking about cancer, and maybe to help understand the test in relation to cancer. Well, we need to talk briefly about the cause, but of course, even up to this time, no one knows what is the main thing that causes this dreaded disease. Various factors have been thrown in the equation, like biological factors, bacteria, like H. pylori in stomach cancer, hepatitis B virus, cause for liver cancer, human papillomavirus, cause for cervical cancer, and even parasites like Schistosoma pneumoniae hematobium causing a special type of liver cancer. People also factored in gene markers in certain groups of families that if a member of the family is ill with cancer, then the other members may carry certain genes in their system and cause cancer. But how does heredity tie up with the causation of cancer? It's still not fully understood. Now, you throw in environmental factors in the equation, like physical factors. Women who have been hit on their breast by their babies, and then eventually they develop cancer later on. How do you explain that? How was it caused? Or exposure to chemicals, exposure to radiation. Of course, in World War II, Japanese victims of radiation suffered from development of leukemia and lymphomas. Then, of course, the people in Chernobyl. Then not a few years ago, from the Fukushima tragedy in the tsunami, where now they're looking at children who have thyroid cancer. So how do you factor all this in as a possible causes of cancer? It's still not complete. Even the food that you're eating, food that you may eat may cause you to have cancer. How do you explain that? Or food that you avoided. Because you avoided certain foods, then you may develop cancer. How do you cause that? Again, immune system disorders like autoimmune diseases. They say that these can be possible factors for the causation of cancer. It's still unexplained at the moment. We have our speaker earlier speaking of stress as a possible factor in the causation of cancer. Interesting, articles were written by Newsweek and even the famous New England Journal of Medicine and mentioned stress as one of the possible factors. But they cannot completely elucidate what is the main item as to its causation. It's to say that maybe there's a weakening of the immune system which affects the capacity of the individual to fight the disease. But there's one important item that I would like to throw in. This was a theory that has been written way back in the early 1900s by Dr. John Beard, the famous embryologist from Edinburgh, England. Next slide, please. Where he wrote the trophoblastic thesis of cancer in the famous journal, Lancet. He describes the presence of the totipotent germ cells which during the development of the embryo are supposed to migrate to the genital ridge. And then when they reach this area, they differentiate into either testicular or ovarian tissue. However, a small percentage, about 20%, fail to reach the genital ridge. And these cells lie dormant in those areas where they stop traveling, and these are so-called extragenital totipotent germ cells. What happened to these cells now? Next slide, please. Well, this is the illustration taken from the work of John Beard. To the left side, you can look at this as the head side of the embryo. This is the foot side of the embryo. Note the arrows here. There's another arrow here. There are clusters of cells here, and another cluster of cells here. These are cells that fail to migrate to this organoid area here called the genital ridge. The rest are going their way to that end stage, but these clusters fail. These are the so-called extragenital totipotent germ cells. You may have heard among alternative practitioners that we have cancer in our bodies. And maybe it's because of this theory that Dr. John Beard exposed as early in 1904. And I think there is some truth to it. Next slide. Well, what will happen to these cells? It was proposed in 1940 by Mencken in his study that during an inflammatory stress on those cells, estrogen will be secreted and trigger a response of cell division, mitosis and meiosis of these genital totipotent germ cells. And the result is the production of the trophoblast. Remember, in pregnancy, the syncytial trophoblast secretes HCG. He termed this trophoblast for cancer, and the similarity is that they both secrete HCG. Next slide. This slide shows the visual proof of that. When in 1979, Dr. Hernan Acevedo was intrigued by the presence of this protein-like structure just outside the cell, and this is the nucleus, this is the cytoplasm of the cell. These are secretory granules. And he wanted to find out what this content is. When he tested this, he found that this is HCG. So he now had shown us visual evidence that HCG is being produced by cancer cells. This spurred him to work further on, and he tried to develop an anti-HCG vaccine, which he still continues to experiment up to this day. Next slide. Well, now we go to the testing itself, but before I push through with it, the main principle is the antigen-antibody reaction. The HCG antigen to the HCG antibody. Now, as I mentioned earlier, development of the monoclonal antibody allowed better development of the test that Dr. Navarro worked on, and he was able to demonstrate the other hormones from HCG. Now, identifying HCG can be done two ways. You can identify it without measuring, or you can identify it at the same time finding out how much there is, so qualitative and quantitative. Now, Dr. Navarro utilized the reagent using a direct agglutination reagent, and he developed a semi-quantitative test. He compared it with the other variations, namely these two at the bottom. They are machine. They utilize machines measuring quantitative HCG using enzyme-linked immunoassay and the radiation-linked immunoassay. Next slide, please. Now I go on to the procedure of the test. Go ahead. I'll discuss briefly the specimen to be collected, what type, and then I'll go on to the next process of extracting the HCG from the urine, separating the two subunits, testing of the specimen, and the interpretation of results. Next slide. HCG can be obtained from urine, blood, or tissue. But Dr. Navarro believed that urine is the specimen of choice. The reason is there is a very high yield of the complete HCG molecule in the urine in comparison to the blood, where, as I mentioned earlier, they get fragmented and the yield of complete molecule in the blood is, the percentage is lower. Thus, urine is the best sample for testing. And this was written in 1980 by Dr. Papa Petrov, when he himself said that there is a higher occurrence of false negatives when you use the blood as a specimen of choice. So it is the urine that is the specimen of choice that Dr. Navarro is using for this test. Well, when you collect the urine, for example, you sleep at 10 o'clock in the evening, and then you sleep through the night, wake up at 3 or 4, then it's the 3 or 4 a.m. urine that would be the best sample for testing. You allow the kidneys to collect all the waste, so you can collect as much HCG in the urine. And how much? You need at least, if you go to submit a urine sample, if you can give me more, like 1 cup or more, that would be very good, so I can have more HCG to work with. Now, of course, sometimes patients come in with bloody urine. This may cause false positive or false negative readings. Seminal fluid has been found to cause false positives. And they say that, well, I'll just give you an example. A man gave his urine sample and it tested positive. Then he told me by accident that I had sexual contact with my wife less than a year, less than 24 hours. The HCG, there could be HCG in there, and the result that came back was very strong. So I told him, give me a new specimen and make sure there's no contact. And true enough, when he gave a second specimen, the more reflected real HCG result came out. It's interesting too that, well, I tell patients, make sure you submit your urine sample in a clean container. Sometimes some containers may not be properly rinsed, and my father mentioned that sometimes detergent may cause false positives. So it's important to give a urine sample in a clean container. Next slide. Now we go on to the process of extraction. First, you get the urine and add to that the acetone. And then to the urine acetone mixture, you add 5 cc of the 95% ethyl alcohol. You can use also 70% isopropyl alcohol. It does the job to cause precipitation of the HCG in the urine. Next. You allow this to stand so that the precipitate collects at the bottom. It should be 6 hours, not 2 hours. Then, next slide. Next. You now, that is the extract that will be filtered, and then from this extract, we'll be able to get the HCG. Next. Okay. We reconstitute this from the extract by dissolving it in ammonium chloride with a pH of 6. Next. Now, this is poured into a column where there is an ion exchanger at the bottom to start the separation process. Next. The next thing is a pH 6 and pH 9 ammonium chloride is poured into the column that now contains the HCG to separate the alpha part of the HCG. Next. And then you finally pour in pH 9 ammonium chloride to come out with this specimen with which we now will be testing for the HCG, the beta HCG. Next. Well, my father continued to look at those two elements, the alpha and the beta subunit, and when he ran these two in spectrophotometric instruments, this is how it looked like. There's a small peak for the alpha, there's a high peak, and then a drop for the beta. But of course, you can't measure how much. Next slide, please. By the way, that in the actual testing, I eventually skipped that. But my father did that, so he has an idea what he is dealing with. Next. Well, the drop of well, the element that's supposed to contain the beta HCG now, we get a drop of that and place it in a well, and then we get another drop of the anti-HCG antibody with the beta subunit in it. And we mix these for at least half a minute, and then we observe for agglutination, and then we mark the time. This is well, we'll go next slide, please. When we look closely, if after mixing it, the appearance comes out like this is how a negative a negative reaction will look like. But sometimes you get reactions like this. There's speckled coagulative material on the slide. This is indicative that there is HCG present, but only maybe in small amounts. When the reaction is strong with big clots, this indicates very high amounts of HCG. But how do you measure this? So this is the first part of the test, which is the qualitative part. We now go on to the quantitative part. He has to develop a way of measuring it. Next slide. So my father got a controlled substance of HCG from the from the WHO, and he made decreasing concentrations from 10 down to 1, and then he tested these for the reagent, and he found that the higher the concentration, the faster the reaction, the lower the concentration, the longer the reaction. So in this way, he finally is able to come up with a graph where he can measure the amounts of HCG. And the result of that is in the next slide. He finally came up with a table where he can measure the amount based on the time of appearance, and there he can determine the amount of HCG present. Next slide. So, when testing urine and the result comes back as 0, this is indicative of a negative reading. Of course, in the real world, this is very ideal. Most patients may have results from here, from 1 to 49, but for these usually are seen in normal people, and this is interpreted as doubtful. But if the reading comes back as 50 or above, then you have a positive reading. Then there is something to look for into this result. Next slide. With most cancers, the results are not very high. Usually anywhere from 50 to 90. Occasionally you may get 100, or 200, 600, or maybe the non-trophoblastic cancers that I've seen, the highest I found are about 2,000 to 3,000 international units. But for the specialized cancers like choriocarcinoma or H-mold, the reading is over 10,000 units. Same is true for testicular cancer and germ cell tumors. They are very high. Next slide. Of course, positive readings, when one has a positive reading, it's usually about 50. And of course, conditions like pregnancy will have a positive reading. The result for pregnancy is high, about maybe 5,000, 8,000 units of HCG. Again, let me stress, seminal fluid can cause false positives, as I mentioned earlier. Patients who take hormones, steroids, thyroid-stimulating thyroid hormone replacement, or progesterone, estrogen hormones, some of them may come up with positive HCG reading. Thrown into the equation is also vitamin D. Vitamin D, as we know, has a structure that is similar to hormones, but the difference is that vitamin D does not have the beta subunit. But I'm sure when one is in vitamin D, this gets mixed up with the other hormones and may interplay as part of their molecule and may contribute possibly to positive breathing. Of course, in cancer, it is positive. The test that we developed is made to detect even any sign, before any sign or symptom occurs, like the absence of a mass or the absence of findings on X-rays or other forms of visual tests. So when a patient comes in with no history and yet he comes in positive, then this is like a red flag that tells us that we have to work to find out what is producing a positive reading. Next slide. Of course, there are situations where results can be negative. When you say negative, it's below 50 international units. We, in the alternative field of medicine, love to tell our patients to drink plenty of water. Of course, sometimes we get overzealous and maybe it's not only 8 glasses, we go 13, 14 glasses, and you get an overhydrated patient, and when he submits his urine sample, the outcome is dilution of the HCG, and sometimes you may end up with a negative reading. So I usually tell patients maybe limit your drinking of water to at least 8 glasses a day before testing, and then submit the urine sample to me, and then at least we have a standard way of, maybe with this standardization we get at least the real HCG finding. Interestingly, patients who have renal failure also, well, in renal failure, patients have fluid excess, like ascites, like fluid in the lungs, fluid in the brain, or swelling of their tumors. They can dilute the HCG from their tumors and may lower the reading and maybe even lead to negative results. Sometimes blood, especially blood, this can be the cause of false negative readings, as mentioned by Dr. Papapatro earlier, due to the fragmentation or the presence of glycosylated HCG fragments. Next slide. Well, the disadvantage of this test is, sure, it will identify positive readings, but it cannot tell you how, or cannot tell you the degree or severity of the cancer. It cannot tell whether it's stage 1 or stage 4, etc. The other disadvantage is when you get a result and you don't know the history at all, then you do not know where the HCG is coming from. So the next step is to, after a good history and physical examination, then the doctor will have to ask for serial, for visual tests to find out where the location is. Next slide. The advantages, however, early detection, as early as 2 years or even more before signs or symptoms or evidence show up. Then, if they are positive, then it gives us a head start on what we will have to do for prevention. I have some slides just to demonstrate how the test can be used. Next slide. This is a baby, 4-month-old infant, with a huge abdominal mass. And the mass was biopsied, came back, an adrenal neuroblastoma of the right adrenal gland. She was given radiation, and her initial HCG was 83.6. But the tumor continued to spread to the liver and other organs. The mother eventually had the radiation stopped and instead shifted to alternative regimentation, vitamins, minerals, pancreatic enzymes. Her reading goes like this: 50.2, well, from 83.6 to 50.2 to 46.6 to 54.2 and to 41.6. The baby, who was 4 months old at that time, continued to grow and thrive. And I had my father passed away in 1992, but I saw this infant who is now a 15-year-old in 2000. She finished high school, went to college, worked, and then went to law school, and now is ready to take the bar exam. This lady is, I think, is about 30 years old now. Next slide. Then we have a healthy female. Physician sent her urine for screening. The result came back positive. She has no illness. Then 1 year later, she underwent for her annual mammogram. Then a 1 centimeter mass was found. The ECG test was repeated again. It was 57. So here we have evidence that even 1 year before things came out, there was already this thing. She was curious and wanted to find out what this is. She had lumpectomy, and the result came back cancer. Next slide. This is an interesting patient who happened to be my father's co-faculty member at the university. He was 70 years old, and my father politely asked him if he can give his urine sample for negative control. And his result surprisingly came back positive. And my father advised him, maybe you need to go for a checkup and thoroughly examine to determine what's causing this. But the gentleman ignored his advice. My father continued to look at him, and 2 years later, he found a non-healing lesion on the professor's cheek, which lasted for 6 months. He eventually decided to have it biopsied, and this came back basal cell carcinoma. So this is an evidence again of a positive test picking up activity even before the diagnosis has been made. Last slide. Next slide. Well, this is another interesting presentation. I have actually, after this, I have another one. This is a 72-year-old man who had history of cough, and his chest X-ray revealed a mass on the left lung. A biopsy came back, and the result came back adenocarcinoma. He was treated with chemotherapy and radiation. So this is how his serial HCG looked like. 61.2, 56, 53, 49.8. So now he has a negative reading. But then the doctor came back, Dr. Navarro, how come your reading showed decreasing results and yet my patient is having difficulty of reading? What's going on? So what I advise would maybe have a CT scan done and maybe an X-ray. The X-ray came back and it showed pleural effusion and there ascites. And then he treated him with diuretics, and the result came back, the repeat scan showing polycystic kidneys. And polycystic kidneys, as we know, can cause renal failure. And then they also found a liver mass. It uncovered the liver mass, and this was the cause of what we can say an end-stage condition. And note the decreasing titers, the fluid diluting the HCG. The patient continued to have renal failure and eventually passed away. Now, another patient. This is a lady, 40-year-old lady with a lump of the breast. In the year 2000, she had a mammogram done but came back suspicious. So she was biopsied and the diagnosis of breast cancer came out, 73.2. She received treatment and her HCG went down to 55. And then eventually she entered into clinical remission. Then, 5 years later, she had her urine tested and came back 58. She told me, could this be an error, Dr. Navarro? Well, I don't know. Have another one done. But then she waited a year. The result came back 59. It went up again. she was a Filipino who was working in the United States. So she went back home there and decided to have a biopsy, a chest X-ray done, and a biopsy of what was on the chest X-ray. They found a mass, so they were thinking metastasis perhaps from the lung cancer. But supposedly, lo and behold, a new type of cancer came about, small cell carcinoma. Before I go on to the last slide, let me well, this is my last slide for the cases, but I'd like to congratulate PCAM on its 18th year, holding this 12th edition of the annual convention. And my congratulations to Dr. Robin Navarro, Dr. Torres for being in charge, and thank you to Jimmy Villaco for inviting me this afternoon and the show done. So congratulations to all of you, and to all of you in the audience. Thank you for your patience and questions.
Thank you, Dr. Navarro, for a very informative lecture. I call on Dr. Robin Navarro and Dr. Erwin Torres, our chairman, to give our certificate of appreciation to our speaker. Also, I'd like to announce. Question.
Thanks, Dr. Fred Navarro, for a very exhaustive presentation of the Gonado Trophy. Well, I just have one question for clarification. As you mentioned, it is found in the placenta, most likely in the embryonic stage of the fetus, blastocyst stage, or most probably they're secreting this hormone. So I'm just thinking, if we can use this for women, especially for pregnant women, but we still have a question in mind, can it be seen in non-pregnant because there's no placenta there? And another question, can it still be seen in males because we don't have the organs, female organs? Or is it only exclusively for males?
In fact, there was a question thrown, are men pregnant? They came up with positive HCG results, but actually when they found out what the men had, they had cancer in their system. But of course, I guess you can throw in the issue of male pregnancy. I haven't encountered that, but
I see.
But I guess perhaps there are, well, we have congenital organs involved. Perhaps there may be a congenital female organ with that man. Perhaps there may be pregnancy in there. Who knows?
Most likely, what could be an answer there is because the cancer cells are just like stem cells. And the stem cells are embryonic cells. That's why when there is a liver cancer, we search for alpha-fetu, from fetus, alpha-fetu protein, AFP. So these are also stem cells that behaves like fetus. So if we can find alpha-fetu protein in liver cells, most likely any cancer cells, because they behave like stem cells, we can find an embryonic like gonadotrophin, as you said. So if you are still finding this in male patients, maybe that's the answer for that. And thank you, and my friend, and my cousin perhaps.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, Dr. Navarro and Dr. Erwin. Well, I would like to give the certificate of appreciation to Dr. Navarro.
I'm glad to see Dr. Chad. I'm not going to a reunion here.
The Philippine College for the Advancement of Medicine Foundation Incorporated of PCAM presents this certificate of appreciation to my cousin, Dr. Efren F. Navarro, for being a resource speaker in the 12th Annual Conference Program on the Power of Natural Healing. This topic is how to treat cancer cells 3 to 4 years before symptoms develop. I want to thank you. And our picture taking, please please join us, Dr. Austin. Picture taking na tayo para remember tayo. Kaya ba ito? Yun na, pakanya. Ha? Sige, sige.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, one more. One more. Okay.
Thanks again, Dr. Efren Navarro. Another big applause for Dr. Efren Navarro.
Thank you. And before we start with the last lecture for the day, I'd like to make an announcement. For those who would like to have their pictures taken in front of our PCAM board, we have our photographer who's here. You can have your pictures taken there with anybody, your companion or with the lecturers. Please, we have the board there at the back. Okay? And also, I'd like to say that the lectures for today and tomorrow, the lectures are all available in CDs. So if you'd like to get a copy of the full lectures, you can go to our secretariat over there and it's already available. I don't know how much they are, you just have to inquire at the desk. Okay? Now, to end the day, we're going to have a little change of schedule because our attended speaker, Dan King, is from Dumaguete, and of course, he did not have a flight coming here. So he will give his lecture tomorrow. So we're going to have our lecturer again, Dr. Kelly Rayburn, to come here in front and lecture to us on cardiovascular disease, treatment with the nutraceuticals. And I call on Dr. Kelly Rayburn again for his lecture on he's going to lecture on what's the next one? Overcoming diseases of the heart. Going to talk about the heart and the adrenals. Okay?
Well, how are you guys doing again today? See you earlier this morning on this thing. Can't hear you. Can't hear you? Okay. Is that better? Okay. How's that? Is that better? Okay. Looks like I'll hold it. So the first topic is going to be on adrenal fatigue. I'm not sure how many practitioners here deal with patients that have that, but I find in the U.S. that we're having more and more of this particular issue. What we typically find is these patients will wake up tired, have no energy whatsoever. Basically, they're adrenal exhaustion. It's typically known as chronic fatigue syndrome. Now, the formulation that I put together to deal with this issue uses whole pituitary, adrenal substance, orchic, and parathyroid. These substances seem to have a nice synergistic effect with each other, and typically we will start to see action or improvement typically within 45 minutes to 1 day, depending on the severity of the condition of the patient. So if a person has a relatively minor issue, take one capsule, 45 minutes later it's in their bloodstream, their energy level shoots up, and they're typically feeling pretty good for the next 24 hours. The nice thing is over a period of time, as they take the stress off of their organs, they can naturally lower their dosage and eventually come off the product. What I find is, as a rule of thumb, is about half of the patients are off the product within the year, The other half of them, because they still have stress, haven't dealt with their underlying problems, will need to use the product pretty much indefinitely until they deal with the real issues or their underlying causes. So what I have found is there's 10 common symptoms of adrenal fatigue: insomnia, unrest, sleep, fatigue, short-term memory loss, concentration. They don't really focus well, malaise after lasting more than 24 hours. One of the main things is memory and concentration issues, depression and anxiety, and also low diastolic pressure. The one thing that I've noticed with people who have severe adrenal fatigue is they may have normal systolic pressure, but on the diastolic pressure and ratio, they may be 10, 20 points below what we normally expect. So when we see evidence like that, we have to try to make sense of what is actually going on here. So when we see that imbalance, this is a good indicator of adrenal fatigue. So my rule of thumb is if a patient has at least 4 symptoms, take it serious, and if they don't, it's probably something else. But at least it's a good indicator of what actually is going on. Now, why would we use these particular substances, in other words, adrenal, right? What's in it, or how does it actually help the patient? Well, adrenal substance helps with fatigue. So just by taking adrenal, by taking the desiccated organ, just by taking that will actually help increase the energy. The other thing that we can notice is people who have adrenal fatigue will have cold extremities, hands, feet. Right? They'll have circulatory issues. And again, sometimes hypotension with low diastolic pressure. This is typically the adrenals that are under-functioning. So by giving the organ to the person, we can take the stress off of it and allow the organ to function naturally and reverse the problem. Also, you'll notice a lot of times people who have diabetes also have adrenal fatigue. And I found in some individuals you can actually reverse diabetes by giving them adrenal substances. Sometimes I've also noticed, a little side note, sometimes with a diabetic, what also triggers it is magnesium deficiency, potassium deficiency. So again, going back to what is the underlying cause of it. But for the people who have adrenal fatigue, looking at the diabetes, right, that could just be a simple adrenal issues. Also, it seems to damage it is fear, malnutrition, cachexia. This is why a lot of times it'll be associated with cancer patients. Pain, rage. So again, somebody who has, anger management issues, we could say. Just have one problem after another. They damage their adrenals by just increasing the stress. So people who also have chronic infections, constantly worried. Now the thing is, what helps the adrenals, what works synergistically with the adrenals is orchic and parathyroid, orchic, pituitary, and thyroid substance. So if we want to have the organ actually work better, we can use those other substances along with it to get a better reaction. Now the orchic, obviously it's going to help men because it's basically desiccated testicles. It helps with testosterone. But also where it helps with women is in its controlling menstruation and also helping with hot flashes and controlling it. So if a woman is having that particular issue, orchic is a great way of controlling it. Yeah. You would kind of think not, but it works fantastic. So the pituitary substance, the parathyroid substance, helps with calcium homeostasis, calcium metabolism. So if again, the person has not enough calcium in the body, right, they're demineralizing, osteoporosis, osteopenia, the parathyroid is not properly functioning. Also, when the calcium is not in balance, typically we'll see insomnia, insufficient parathyroid, irritability, and restlessness, and marked nervousness is typically what's found. So if a person has mild depression, again, it may not be a real psychological issue, right? It just could be that the adrenals are overworked. They're having a light and a nighttime job. When they should be asleep, they're awake. Their hours are upside down. So by not getting a natural sleep rhythm, this can affect the whole body. Did I get water? Yeah. I drink too much water. So whole pituitary substance also helps strengthen the heart, improves cardiac weakness, and also will help correct hypertension. So when we're looking at the pituitary, we're looking at basically strengthening the body, strengthening the heart, strengthening the cardiac system, as I said earlier, and improving kidney function, and can, in some instances, actually work as a diuretic. So, let me give you things, a couple examples here. One of the patients, they basically had been fine emotionally, work wasn't doing well. This had been actually going on for years. This person was just, I guess we could argue, chronically depressed. They had chronic neck pain, back pain, fibromyalgia, had been sick for the 2 previous years. In other words, the antibiotics were working, nothing was really helping to turn this person around. She began taking 5 capsules at the beginning of the day. At the end of the day, she felt at 15 is when she stopped. At 15 capsules, she felt like a brand new person. So the one thing with the particular product, the endocrine vendor, to help with adrenal fatigue, is it is really truly dose responsive. If a person only needs a little bit of assistance, 1 or 2 capsules will do the trick. If they need far more, then they just have to increase as they need it. Now also, other patients have found that after surgery, they had adrenal fatigue. After surgery, they started to gain weight, had no energy, was only able to sleep about 2 hours a night. And by taking the product and 3 capsules, they had immediate results. They found that they were able to sleep throughout the night, and their symptoms were reversed. Other patients have had neck pain, right? Chronic pain, as we described earlier, have been suffering with diabetes, sleep disorder, again fibromyalgia, thyroid issues, and depression. And to get a little bit on a side note again with the thyroid issues, I do find that most people who have thyroid issues, it's their adrenals is the main problem. I find that most people really do not need thyroid. Their T3, T4, the real issue is they need some iodine, and the rest of it they need their adrenals looked at. Once you do that combination, their thyroid starts functioning properly, and they're able to get it under control. And again, typically you will see results of this within 1 to 2 days, and the person will no longer have the chronic, whether they have energy, they don't, their hands are cold, their feet are cold, all the classic problems. So by looking at it from an adrenal issue, by looking at it from a chronic fatigue issue, and remember, these people may want to get up and work and take care of their life, right? But with sleep, with rest, they still don't have any energy. They're, from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed, they're chronically tired. So when you see that, it's one of the best indicators I've seen of people who suffer from it. So it's really something that is actually devastating. One of the problems is, even though chronic fatigue syndrome is recognized in the U.S., there is no blood test or actual test of the symptoms of it to actually identify it, what makes it kind of difficult. But I have, as I said, I've seen it work in a lot of people who have had thyroid issues. And again, it's not that they're, because a lot of people, a lot of patients will try to control their thyroid using desiccated thyroid or Synthroid or whatever they're using and never really get it under control. And again, by taking iodine, getting their iodine corrected, using the endocrine mender along with it, getting the adrenals adjusted, you can typically take these people off of their thyroid medication within a few days. Well, actually, will take themselves off of it. And then the blood test later on will prove that really the thyroid is functioning is perfectly fine. Now, I've also seen this with women who have had breast cancer, and also, quite frankly, other cancers as a result. One of the patients who had stage 4 breast cancer, also was weak, was shaking, nervous, had tremendous stress, right? Had chest pain, was losing weight, loss of memory. After taking some of the product, she was able to reverse these symptoms. She was able to gain 5 pounds within 7 days and get her energy back up. So it wasn't that her body was in conservation mode. It's that her adrenals were absolutely shot out from the stress of having the disease. So again, I think we need to step back and ask ourselves, when we see a patient who is losing weight, not doing well on whatever regimen, are they eating enough nutrition? Do they have enough nutrition? Or their adrenals stressed out because they have a late-stage disease, they feel like they're going to die. And I've also noticed in other patients where you give them the nutrients that should reverse their cancer, and they don't seem to get well. And I've found that when you deal with their adrenals in these circumstances, their body will actually start to heal itself. So again, you have to look at the person, find out what's actually going on. Are they sleeping? Are they resting? Do they have symptoms of larger issues or even smaller issues that have to be addressed to reverse the disease? And I think another good example is getting back again to the thyroid issue, because I find this to be about half of the people who have adrenal issues, have thyroid issues, and just by taking the right amount of iodine, and I find the simplest way to do it, just have them get some iodine tincture, have it applied to the skin about an inch and a half square, and then see how fast it absorbs into the body. If it's gone within a couple hours and their hair is falling out, well, it's pretty obvious they're iodine deficient. If the stain stays on the skin for a full 24 hours, the likelihood they have more than enough iodine in their system, that's not the real issue. But what you'll find with most people is that it's adrenal fatigue, they get the iodine in them, their body starts to produce it, their thyroid was never destroyed in the first place. Their body just wasn't communicating. So by allowing the desiccated organs to give it precursors, because when you think about it, what we're really looking at is bovine parts, cow parts, and there's no way that cow desiccated organs are going to affect the human body. So what we're really giving the body is precursors. We're giving the body substances that are 90% complete. The organ can make the rest of it. So if it's tired, it's fatigued, by giving it the precursor. And again, I think a good way of looking at this is considering vitamin A versus beta-carotene, right? If we take a bunch of beta-carotene, we may turn yellow, but we're not going to die. If we take way too much vitamin A, we will surely die, right? So the precursors are a very safe way of giving the body exactly what it needs without poisoning it. With all the formulations that we try to put together, because that's kind of the rule, right, is to make things that the person will respond to, will fix their underlying problem, but at the end, won't actually harm them. Because we want to make it safe for everybody to use without having to do a bunch of tests and a bunch of expensive lab work. So, to end up this thought on adrenal fatigue, if you have patients that aren't healing well, they're emotionally stressed, they have underlying problems that nobody can really put their finger on. They don't really, when you look at them, it doesn't make sense why they're not responding to a particular protocol. one thing I would suggest is talk to them, try to find out what their underlying problems are. If you find that it's adrenal related, by giving them endocrine medicine, by using that particular substance, how you do it is you give them one capsule, tell them to take one capsule per hour until their energy level goes up and they feel good. Then what I suggest to most people is just don't overdose, just take too much of it. When they take too much of it, they'll get slightly jittery. So if they get jittery at 5, they know their dosage is 4 capsules per day. By doing it, by getting it to those upper limits, it takes the burden off the body so it can repair itself. And those people who follow that basic rule of thumb will be completely off the product, and their adrenal issues will be completely repaired within a year. So that's my little presentation on endocrine and adrenal fatigue. Does anybody have any questions? It's a product by Bio Laboratories. It's called endocrine. Excuse me? Endocrine. Endocrine. E-N-D-O-C-R-I-N-E. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the nice thing is it's also a cheap product. It's very inexpensive. And for anybody who'd like to try it, I did bring a bunch, and feel free to try it. Get a bottle of it. I think I only brought a few of them, I think 10 or 20 bottles, something like that. But if you want to try it, have a bottle, give it a shot. If you know somebody who's adrenal fatigue, because it's one of those concepts, one of those things that are, as I said, it's hard to prove that they do or do not, right? But as I said, these people will be chronically tired. There's just nothing you can do for them. You can give them all the B12 in the world, they're still going to be shot up. You deal with their adrenals, it's solved in 1 day. 2 days if they have to take a lot of it, but most people within 1 day. Is there any other questions? Yeah.
Dr. Kent, my friend, you know, when we are so tired and exhausted already, sometimes we develop what we call adrenal exhaustion, or sometimes in a prolonged condition, Addison's disease, by which the adrenal gland cannot produce corticosteroid hormone, and this hormone is necessary to reduce inflammation everywhere. Example, if you had a stroke, if you had a heart attack, the adrenal gland will produce the hormone to remove the inflammation, reduce the inflammation, so you don't die of heart attack, to remove inflammation in the brain so that you can walk after the stroke. So, how do we effectively manage this? I think you have a system of management, and you please just tell us the details of how we can enhance adrenal function through your system.
Again, it's basically just using the same product, the endocrine medicine. It has the adrenal substances in there. So the thing is just proper dosage. And most of the time that I've used it is actually for people who had severe exhaustion. And that's the main thing. Or I've seen it with women who were menstruating, didn't stop, kept menstruating for over 2 months. I've seen it solve that problem within 2 days. So again, it really just depends on the underlying problem. But if the issue is cortisol issues, right, we just need to give the body precursors, it works fantastic. And the nice thing is typically we'll see evidence of it within about 24 to 48 hours. And if it's, again, a mood thing, an energy issue, depending on the severity of it, as quick as 45 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. Any other questions? Okay. Well, let me move on to another subject, heart disease. Now, this is kind of an interesting formula that I put together. What the goal of it was to soften the arterial tree, to stop atherosclerosis. Well, it's kind of a hard one when you think about it, right? Typically what's used is chelation therapy. What has its advantages and disadvantages? I think we could all agree that when you use chelation, it can be a little hard on the organs, it can be a little hard on the kidneys. The method that I'm using uses enzymes, ATP and Q10. So we're basically giving the body a bunch of energy. Right? The other thing that we're giving it is enzymes, nanokinase, serrapeptase, pancretin, that'll go in there and remove the excess fibrin from the bloodstream. And what I find is that this will improve oxygen supply to the extremities, to the brain. If a person is suffering from, say, vascular dementia, you'll start to see improvement. So it eats away the blockages. So if somebody has, let's argue, deep vein thrombosis, the enzymes, because they remove the fibrin, will eat through the deep vein thrombosis. So even if there's 100% blockage going to the lung, to the arteries, I mean in the arteries I should say, but let's say to the heart, right, pretty much any place, the enzymes will go in there and dissolve them bit by bit. So even at 100% blockage, it has been proven that nanokinase and serrapeptase will eat through the blockages. The nice thing is it's incredibly safe. With a lot of the drugs that are on the market that help with this, as we know, can be quite dangerous. But with these enzymes, you can get the results, you can soften the arteries. Well, it's actually the ATP that's going to soften the arteries. But the enzymes will go in there, remove the fibrin, so we can get the blood flowing properly. So if somebody has aggregation, or as I said earlier, rouleau formation, we can solve that problem. So also what's in the product is ATP, and as I said earlier, that softens the arteries. Because one of the main problems is as we get those little tears, as we get those little ruptures, our body produces the macrophage, right, goes over, right, clogs the holes. And I've always kind of looked at it from an analogy standpoint, is the arteries are a bit like a balloon, right? And what the body produces to solve the little tears is more like cement. The problem is cement on balloons only create other tears. And before we know it, the artery becomes smaller and smaller, but then it creates head pressure and then would bring up systolic or diastolic pressure depending on where the blockage is occurring. And when we see this, when we start to see these little ruptures, when we start to see these little tears, this is the beginning of a major problem, right? Because as we start bringing up our blood pressure, we also start to increase our scar tissue, especially for discussing our organs. So by using ATP, we can soften the arterial tree. It's used to increase the blood flow without actually increasing the blood pressure and oxygen uptake to improve healing. It also helps prevent hypoxia. It's also been shown to help the heart in its actual function, giving the energy to beat. So if somebody has, let's say, atrial fibrillation, you supply some ATP directly to the heart, and you supply it to the system, the atrial fibrillation should, for most individuals, will start to correct itself within a day to a week. It's kind of amazing because I have seen people after a heart attack who weren't able to walk more than 20 feet, were able to walk a mile within a month. And that's just giving the energy to the heart so the person can properly function. The formulation also contains some material bromelain that helps with the thrombosis, again prevents aggregation of the blood, and increases oxygen permeability to the vessels. It also contains lipase. Now what I would suggest is lipase is the body's way of dealing with the triglycerides, the HDL, the cholesterol. I would suggest fat is needed, it's needed for the cells, and if we don't have fat, the body's not going to properly function. So by using the lipase, we can utilize the energy that we put into the body. So what I would also think we need to consider is if we see high concentrations of lipase in the blood, that possibly there's a liver issue, basically bringing head pressure and going off into the system. So by using the lipase, we can control and we get the nutrition to the body so it can properly function. Nanokinase is another substance that is also found in the product. It has anticoagulating effect, removes the fibrin, helps with platelet aggregation, and as I said earlier, helps with rouleau formation. deals with the thrombosis, and can lower blood pressure and aids in blood flow. So basically what we're starting to, I think you're starting to see here, is what we're doing is allowing the blood to flow easier through the body. If there's any blockages, it's going to eat away. And if there's any debris that has started to build up on the arterial wall, and let's assume it's from macrophage, right? It's basically a protein-fat combination. The enzymes and the lipase are going to go in there and remove it and then liberate the minerals, and then the body will deal with that later. But the main thing is that what we're going to do is soften it, but we also have to clean out the debris that's floating around. The other thing that it contains, other substances, the pancreatic enzymes, and that shows to help with angina. It cleans the debris, the excess fibrin from the cardiovascular system, increases the blood flow, it allows adequate oxygen and nutrition to pass through and feed the heart. The other thing that it contains is Q10. And the Q10 decreases as we age. It decreases the proliferation of free radicals in the body. So when we look at Q10, what also I think we can argue safely is a precursor to ATP. We're getting the energy of getting back into the heart. So we're getting more muscle, more energy to the muscle, allowing the heart to function with more energy, allowing the valves in the heart to open and close quickly so we get good systolic and diastolic pressure. Serrapeptase is used in the product to help remove blood clots, cysts, arterial plaquing, and lower inflammation, including symptomatic proteins, and help with blockages. And also it has the ability within the blood. So, what's the test? How do we know that this is actually working? Over the last few years, I've been testing this product a fair amount. And I've done around 300 tests with human subjects. And in some instances, right, and let me give you hopefully a couple of good examples here. 31-year-old female, her systolic pressure was 142, right? A little high, but not horrible, right? Within 30 days, she was down to 111. So that was a 31-point drop within 30 points on the systolic pressure. And the diastolic went from 74 to 66, a negative point. Now the machine that I was using to verify this was a Pasco device. It also uses a different technology along with it. It's called central aortic pressure. They were kind of experimenting with that over there earlier. It's kind of interesting technology because it basically does an angiogram without surgery, cutting into the arteries. It really kind of nails the numbers. And it was kind of as I said, it's an interesting tool that can look to see how healthy a person is or if they actually have hardening of the arteries. And what we proved in the different tests is for the ones that did have hardening of the arteries, it did soften it. And a lot of times we had it reversed within 30 days. So it's finding, again, your dosage, finding how bad or not how bad it is depending on the subject, and then getting the right dosage. And then also, to kind of give an example on what the enzymes are able to do, because I believe that they're the only substances in the formula that are able to work this quickly, is that there's, let me give you again, hopefully a good example. Did one study with a woman who was 63 years old. She was demonstrating type 1 hypertension. Her blood pressure was 147 over 82. Now this was a simple 2-hour test. 2 hours later was 122 over 72. So in her systolic pressure, she had a drop of 25 points. And her diastolic pressure dropped by 10. And what the machine picked up, the central aortic pressure, was a drop of 23 points. So what I believe is mainly working here is that her blood, I think, was aggregated. I think she was basically pumping sludge. It's the only thing that makes any sense in my mind what is actually happening. I think she was dehydrated. I think she had a lot of inflammation. So by thinning it out, by allowing it to flow through the cardiovascular system unimpeded, we're able to fix the problem. And honestly, I think it's the only thing that makes any sense. And to give you another example, is another subject who is 56 years old, female again, right? He had stage 3 hypertension. And the blood pressure was 196 over 95. 2 hours later, it was 149 over 87. Now, obviously, it's still high, but I would also argue when you get it, from 196 to 49 in 2 hours, that's a pretty fast drop. That's a net loss or an improvement, right, of 46 points. The diastolic went down by 8 points, and that went from 95 to 87. And her central aortic pressure went from 193 to 139, a negative 54-point drop. So I think what we're starting to see here is that by using natural substances, we can't just improve the heart over months or years, right? You can actually improve the heart within hours. And those are some significant drugs. I mean, I don't know of any allopathic drugs that are able to do that. Maybe I'm misinformed about it, but that's pretty quick, 2 hours. So, the other thing that we notice is with hardening of the arteries, a lot of times, obviously it's going to take a little bit longer, and again, depending on the severity of it. But in one of the examples, is where we're doing the test using the machine over there. And within 2 months, they had normal flow. There was no more atherosclerosis. It was solved. And so I don't believe that once somebody has hardening of the arteries, they have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to soften the arterial treatment. It can be easily done by using the right nutrients, by getting nutrients into the body that it really requires, will solve it. And I think the other thing, to be fair, and I think to also put this in the big picture, right? If a person doesn't have enough vitamin C, if they have bad nutrition, we also have to consider that. And most of these people already were eating right, on good nutrition, were doing a lot of the right things, but they still had hardening of the arteries. So it's not always about, are you eating a good diet? Because I've seen a lot of people who are eating fantastic diets. Sometimes it's about assimilation, right? So again, I think we need to always step back and try to look at the big picture and try to figure out what is actually happening with that person and then see how they respond to it. And I think another good example here is a guy who was 72 years old and after a heart attack couldn't walk across his room without being in complete exhaustion. Right? Within a month, his fatigue was gone. He could walk and do anything that he wanted to. It doesn't take years. And a person, just because they have a heart attack, doesn't have to give up on life. And I'll give you an example. I know this one guy, a patient, who's had 2 heart attacks before he ever tried the product. He was unable to exercise because every time he attempted to exercise, he was out of breath. So his whole body was just going downhill. Right? 2 weeks ago, he was up at 15,000 feet jogging. This is a guy who had 2 heart attacks. I would suggest his quality of life has absolutely come back 100%. So it's getting, again, the right nutrients and helping them oxygenate more efficiently. And then, but also to be fair with that guy, he also took some cordyceps to help oxygenate his body a little better also. So it's, again, it's using combinations. It's using what the person needs to restore their health. So what we find is people who have had lack of energy, can't walk upstairs, can't jog, can't exercise, can't do the basic functions of life of just walking around after a serious heart issue or, after a fall or, plane trip, 100 reasons that we start having heart issues. By using enzymes, by using the nutrients, by using the energy that we can feed these cells with, we can start reversing these problems. So just because somebody's been diagnosed with a heart condition, right, lack of energy, or there's no reason to give up. And this is why I would argue, this is why I continue to argue, that natural products are actually stronger and better than allopathic drugs. Does anybody have any questions? No, no. The name of the product is called cardiovascular membrane.
I have a question about, for example, you have a hypertensive patient and you said you need a product, those
Right.
nutrients. You have a hypertensive patient and you said within a few hours it went down. Okay?
Right.
How long did the effect last? Because, and what is the mechanism? Because if you're going to think that it's the enzyme that digested all those fibrin and plaque on the wall, you would think that it would not come back anymore because it's been digested away.
No. Let me disagree.
Am I thinking correctly or not correctly?
Well, it's not that I'm going to pick on your way of thinking. I just suggest you're wrong. No, I think another way of looking at it is, let's take a couple examples. Okay? Let's use somebody, an argument, right, that the person has, they take the product, your scenario, right? Once you remove the fibrin is not removed forever. Fibrin is also created from inflammation. So let's take an argument that they ate some KFC, country fried chicken, right? Or French fries, or some other god-awful food, right? So they had some KFC, right? So they basically cooked it in rancid oil. And the reason I'm going to argue it's rancid is because it is. And because it's rancid oil, they're filling their body up with free radicals. And these free radicals are going directly into the red blood cell because the red blood cells love fat, right? They need the energy. So now what we do, we just damage all the red blood cells. I would argue that the lower aggregation is going to take place. And I actually did an experiment on that. And what I showed was, and it's also, if you want to see it, just go to tumorex.com, and I believe it's at the cardiovascular page, or it's at the diabetes page. But what I did is we consumed chicken every day, right? And it was just from a local restaurant. Nothing particularly fancy about it, just same old garbage oil that everybody else uses. Every day we took a look at the blood, every day the blood looked horrible. Took the cardiovascular measure, within 45 minutes to 2 hours, the aggregation was gone, the rouleau formation was completely improved, but as soon as we ate the horrible food again, it came back. So once you clean that out, it's not a one-time fix-all. And I'd also suggest this. I've seen the aggregation leave, right, and then 5 hours later come back. So I think it depends on the amount of stress that's in the body. And I think we can all agree that some foods create inflammation and some foods are anti-inflammatory. So if they're eating a lot of food like, say, red meat, right, I think it would be fair to suggest is a inflammatory food and versus, say, argue rice. Typically, from what I've seen, it's an anti-inflammatory food. Depending on what a person is eating, their blood is going to respond accordingly. Now, in another scenario, let's also take the people that was a 2-hour response, because where I may have not misled, I need to better clarify here. People don't always get fantastic results in 2 hours, and that's why I started off that first example of a 30-day. And let's take her as an example. She's seen a 1 or 2 point difference in 2 hours. Didn't really see any measurable movement to speak of, right? It wasn't until she was on the product for a full 30 days did we see the actual results of what the product was able to do. Now the other people, and if you will like, I can show you the notes on it because I actually show the waveform, and you can see that their heart really wasn't functioning well. And basically their heart rhythm then should have looked more like that. Looks more like a bell curve. So they had some serious issues. And with them, I would argue, I think the only thing that makes sense for them was the severe aggregation. I think they were pumping sludge. It's the only thing that makes any sense. But ATP does also work as a minor or mild vasodilator also.
Able to correlate the effects of this one with a measurement of the HSCRP, which is a correlation of the inflammation of the arteries.
No, not where I could prove. Now, the only thing I've been able to really, where there's absolutely no doubt, is cleaning out the arteries, reversing the hardening, right? The effects of the blood. Those have all been relatively easy to prove. The other stuff, not so easy to prove. It's not gonna work well. So, I mean, it just depends on what you're using it for. It's like every substance, right? But you really have to look at the person and see what the deficiency is, and then again, try to line them up. Does that make sense?
The lipid profile, just on this formula.
If it's a minor problem, yes. If it's a major problem, then I suggest beer lipase. Yeah, just beer lipase. I find that most people, 2 capsules, it solves their lipid issues. And you know, if we need a little bit more, we can always have a lipid component and get some better metabolism from it. But for most people, the pill, what's already in there naturally with the pant cream, is enough to correct it. Now, but again, I would suggest if they have high triglycerides and there are other LDL, HDLs in the right ratios, I would suggest maybe that there's a blockage in the common bile duct and the liver, the enzyme is spilling off in the liver, which shows, you know, really another issue. But, does that mean, did I answer that right?
I'm thinking about what we call the metabolic syndrome.
You mean when somebody has diabetes and then has
All these things, which is all interrelated to the cardiovascular. That's what the conventional medicine usually they say, oh, your high cholesterol. That's why they lower the cholesterol and everything, because they're saying, you know, it's linked to cardiovascular disease. So I'm thinking whether if you improve the blood pressure and everything, and the blood pressure, that the cholesterol, will it correct the lipid, the HDL, the LDL, all those triglyceride problems? Does it come along with it? Or part of the...
I think the fair answer is yes and no. I mean, as an argument, right? If a person has metabolic syndrome, and let's assume that they're diabetic, and let's assume for argument that they have poor circulation, right? This is the scenario. That particular person, yes, but you also have to deal with the diabetes. Because, again, these people who have this systemic inflammation, and again, if we're looking at, say, lipid profile in the bloodstream, right? Well, of course, the bloodstream, but why is it high? I mean, that's when you have to start looking at which particular fat is high. You know, so if it's the triglycerides, that's where I would say is the red flag for the liver. But again, if the common bile duct is clogged, right, that's a pretty good indication of what's going on. And then let's also not forget if they're, you know, what also could throw this off is, let's assume for argument that they also have tightening of the chest, right? Every time they smell fat, they're all ready to vomit, right? Certain foods make them sick. They eat broccoli, they vomit. And they have a lot of other issues. I mean, at that point, I think it would be fair to argue that they're having gallbladder issues. And that the reason that their profile is so high, it's not because their pancreas isn't producing enough, but it's not being properly emulsified. So, that's where I say yes and no. Does that make sense? Excuse me?
I think it does, because it's a multifactorial problem, so you can't fix it with just one thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's our problem. It's too complex to say this one product will do everything. If you made that one product that did, it'd be a horse pill. Then nobody could swallow it. But what the product was intended to do, right, was to clean up the cardiovascular system, to solve the arterial tree, and get heart function, and allow the heart to function with more efficiency, so a person is just not, the heart doesn't have the energy to beat if they have atrial fibrillation to correct it. Now, but again, to be fair, and also to look at it from another perspective, I've also seen patients who had atrial fibrillation, and the only way we've got it 100% fixed, I mean, in put this perspective, I've seen the product work with about 80% of the people who had atrial fibrillation, and it did a fantastic job, completely resolved the issue. The other ones, right, had iodine deficiency, and it wasn't until we got the iodine levels corrected that their atrial fibrillation subsided. And that is what actually was the end, what fixed it. So again, it just depends on the person and then what their underlying problems are.
Was the atrial fibrillation kind of connected to being hypothyroid since it got corrected with iodine?
No, they didn't have it. And the one guy that I'm thinking of that was actually, he is 72 years old. He's a medical doctor, quit practice because of his AFib. And only had 20% sinus rhythm when he started the product. So he wasn't doing well. Right now, his AFib is completely cleared. But the last thing that he needed was the iodine, and the first thing that we've seen resolve, he had dry skin for years, right? That was the first thing that was resolved. The last thing that was resolved was AFib. And it took about 6 months before we seen that problem resolved. Well, this is fun. Is there any other questions?
This is not a question, but my paper presentation tomorrow will really add much to this problem, because my paper that I'll present will send to you some another thing that saturated fat, triglycerides, saturated fat, and cholesterols are things that we need to prevent heart attack, stroke, and cancer. And that's exactly the opposite of what we were told for several years already. And that I will make it very, very clear tomorrow. I hope I could finish that in 1.5 hours. You don't like cancer? You need a lot of saturated fat. You don't like heart attack? You like stem cells? You need cholesterol. Without cholesterol, you cannot produce a single stem cell. That is something that I will clarify tomorrow.
And you're not going to have your hormones.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's that?
Yeah, your brain will shrink without your fat also.
Yes, tomorrow it will be clarified everything. Thanks, Dr. Ayub.
No, you're welcome. Thank you. Was there, or is there any more questions? Anything else? Was there any more questions? Yeah. Oh, we can discuss that too. That'd be fun. Kind of. Let's see if I can put this in perspective. with adrenal fatigue, if it truly is adrenal fatigue, yes, right? But there's a lot of reasons people are tired. So I mean, if they have, let's argue, they don't have enough B vitamins, right? They don't have enough folic acid, and their red blood cells aren't properly formed, and they're not oxygenating properly. Well, that'll make you tired all the time. So that's why I say yes and no. That's why my premise of it was, if it's true adrenal fatigue, if it's, let's argue the thyroid is underperforming, right? In that instance, if you give them iodine, the iodine will stimulate T3, T4 production. Once their thyroid's functioning right, that'll solve that problem. So, but the product without the iodine is only partially going to work. It's kind of like having the car without the gas. It kind of works, but not really. You need both for it to really advance the patient, to really fix the problem. Does that make sense? If it's a thyroid issue, right, and you add the thyroid and the adrenal together, and the thyroid issue will go away. So when you think of it from that perspective, the real underlying problem was an iodine deficiency and adrenal insufficiency. So once you boost the organs, allow them to properly function, allow them to produce the chemical messengers and hormones, then they will function properly. But you can't have one without the other. So, in another example, let's assume that they need some ATP. I've seen people who, had no energy whatsoever. Endocrine mentor didn't do anything for them. Gave them some pure ATP, and their whole life changed. And when we think about ATP, in theory, we produce our own body weight of that substance every day. So we should have more than enough of it. But it's basically constantly being regenerated in the body. So if a person is deficient for whatever reason, you give them a little bit more, they can have a life-changing experience within hours. So again, it depends on what is triggering, why are they tired, or why is their thyroid off. Does that make sense? So it could be B vitamins, could be, What?
I said it makes sense, but it's not true. I always do that, but then I did have one patient who, when I corrected both the thyroid and the adrenals, he had adrenal fatigue, and and he was slightly low in his thyroid, and I treated them both. Oh, his adrenals couldn't take it. I had to correct his adrenals separately before I could give him thyroid.
We're thinking thyroid or iodine?
Iodine, okay.
Because what I find with most people is they really don't need thyroid. What they need is iodine.
And do you give iodine or iodide or combination or what? It's just iodine?
No, I just use that cheap iodine tincture and get it in your store.
Yeah, glucose iodine.
Yeah, well, whatever the brand is. I tell them to pretty much buy any brand they want. It doesn't seem to matter. But yeah, it seems to work just perfectly fine. Oh, they just paint it on their skin. The thing that I'm trying to figure out with iodine is I've seen some interesting Japanese study that suggests that the Japanese are consuming between 1 to 3 milligrams of iodine per day, and the U.S. government says we need about 400 millicentigrams. The Japanese have the best heart rates in the world, from what I've read, and we have some to suck this. So I'm thinking that they really might have some to their iodine arguments. The problem is everyone that I've seen that have orally supplemented with iodine, I've never seen them correct their iodine deficiency. I've seen a lot of people who took iodine capsules, not really iodine capsules, they were taking seaweed pills basically, but they were still iodine deficient. So with all the people I've talked to that were supplementing, they knew they needed iodine, they got zero improvement. And the first time I seen this problem, I remembered being over at Jamie's house, recommended iodine tincture to someone. I was like, well, let me steal his idea and see how well it works, right? It worked beautifully. Their iodine problem, their hair stopped falling out within 2 days. And again, I've never seen that happen when they did iodine from seaweed or any other method that I'm aware of. So it just appears to be the most efficient way of doing it. Yeah, just paint it on. Yeah. Typically, hair will stop falling out in 1 to 2 days. Not really suggestive on the inch and a half square. But I've also seen women cover the whole forearm with it too. I have seen it. I've seen people apply iodine to their skin, and it was gone in a half an hour. I've seen other people apply it. You like that? You better get some iodine. Yeah, every hour do it. More the better. You gotta get that fixed. Yeah, you might want to just take a bath. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Basically, what causes iodine deficiency is the increase in the halides in the system, which is caused by chlorine, fluoride, and bromine. So even if you're taking iodine, if you have those other halides which compete with iodine receptors, you would not be able to improve your iodine. And then, there are times when the iodine would not work because these halides are tightly bound to the receptors, and what would work would be the nano-iodine, and I would use the homeopathic iodine, and it would work. So, if a person is iodine deficiency, but she keeps on taking a bath in chlorinated water, taking Gatorade, Mountain Dew, or bread with a lot of bromine, you would not be able to improve the iodine deficiency. So it's just a matter of which is more in your system, the iodine or the other three halides that are toxic, which can kick out the iodine.
So your argument is it's basically an imbalance.
Yes.
And so what is your solution for kicking the other ones out to be the replacement?
More iodine. And yes. And the problem is some halides, this bromine, chloride, and bromine, would be so tightly bound that even if you give a lot of iodine, they would not they would not be kicked out of those receptors. And then you would need nano-iodine. So there are persons who would respond to iodine, and iodine is for the thyroid, but the breast, the prostate, the ovaries, they need iodine and iodine. So if one has cancer, it's very important that you give combinations of iodine and iodine in the right amount.
I'm going to get that. We're going to talk about that some more.
Thank you.
That was good. So, what I would say, my basic point though is, you have to take care of the underlying problem. And again, if you're dealing with adrenal fatigue, if it's the adrenals, endocrine vendor will solve the problem, and you will see relatively quick. If it's a thyroid issue, you have to deal with that. There's not one product that's going to be the panacea. You take this one pill, it solves all problems. This is more targeted to what the deficiency is, so the body can naturally resolve it and correct itself. Any other questions? Okay. Well, look, it was fun. Thank you.
And call on Dr. Navarro to give the certificate of appreciation. And Erin.
The Philippine College for the Advancement in Medicine Foundation presented the certificate of appreciation is hereby awarded to Kelly Rivers, Doctor of Science, for being a resource speaker in the 12th Annual Conference on the Power of Natural Healing, Overcoming Diseases of the Heart, held at Kalayaan Hall, Filipino, on November 9, 2013.